Appreciate that. I got to tell you, we want the crew at Mossy Creek winds up going to a lot of shows, but I can tell you, Winston-Salem is our favorite show because you really are the nicest people coming to shows. There's something delightful about the Southern hospitality and the culture down here, and so I just want to tell you how much we enjoy coming down to this show. As Chuck said, I've been involved in Tenkara for about 6 years now. I started when I read an article in Fly Rod and Reel magazine written by Yvonne Chenard, who is the owner of Patagonia. You notice it's Patagonia. I'm a Patagonia fly fishing ambassador, which is a very recent development, but nonetheless. But it was Yvonne's article that talked about how he was trying to simplify his life and how he was trying to get rid of gear in favor of technique. And so he developed the whole sort of, let's get simple about stuff. And then right after that, about a year later, Daniel Galhardo brought Tenkara really to America. He brought it from Japan and started a company, Tenkara USA, and really introduced Tenkara to the American fly fishing scene. And if you were around in those days, there was a lot of nonsense about, Tenkara is dapping, and it's just cane pole fishing, and, lefty no Tenkara, and, it was kind of, we were kind of wandering out in the wilderness here, but today, it's almost mainstream, and there are probably people who would say, no, Sadler, it will never be mainstream. Only idiots like you would think it's mainstream, but it is. And we're seeing, I think there are 12 companies that have Tenkara rods in the United States now. So it is, and there's a reason why it's so popular. It's a reason why we sell so many rods, why Patagonia sells so many rods. It's simple. And what's tough for me when I do a casting demonstration is that I don't get to go through all the machinations that other casting demos do, because they show you how to strip the line off and how to rig the rod and how to make long casts. And, they tell you about oh, foam bits for you. They want you to use your forearm. How many of you fly fish right now, conventional? It's hard for me to say traditional, whatever, however you want to know. How many of you have done Tenkara? Okay, well that's great. Okay, so that's about half. So instinctively, when we pick up a fly rod, we go like this. Okay, we wiggle the rod like this. Now, if you've been doing it for a while, the little instructor that sits on your shoulder says, no, idiot, go like this, right? But the instinct is to go like this. You see people talking about fly fishing, they go like this. That is the Tenkara cast. Shockingly, that is the Tenkara cast. Now, if you want to be good with a conventional fly rod, listen to those other guys. Don't listen to me. If you want to be good with a Tenkara rod, I will show you that it's this cast. So, Tenkara is a very basic form of fly fishing. It's a stick, it's a string, it's a fly, and it's a fool on the other end. So I'm not going to put a fly on, but I'm going to show you some of the basics, and I'll talk a little bit about the setup that I use. When Tenkara was introduced in the United States, they were using furled lines, basically furled leaders, just really long ones. And the first ones were made of monofilament. Remember those days? Monofilament. Okay, and if you've got a fly caught up in the tree, and I know most of you guys and ladies don't get your flies caught in trees with your fly fish, but when you do, the odd chance it happens, you yank on it, right? Well, when you yanked on this and the fly came loose, it looked like the telephone cord nest that you would get, the dog's breakfast of telephone cord that you would get. And so they quickly changed it and went to Spectra, to just Kevlar. And that eliminated the dog's breakfast telephone wire or telephone cord looking mess that you would get. And then they used level fluorocarbon, different gauges of fluorocarbon. And it's very effective, and both of those types of lines are very effective for presenting dry flies and soft habits. But in both cases, they had one attribute that I didn't personally like, and they sunk. And I worship at the altar of the dead drifters. Why I got involved in Tenkara, and I'll explain why. But that's what I want to see that fish come up and hit a dry fly or a big terrestrial or a mouse on the surface. I'll fish the other ways because, you know, if you're going to put your waders on, you might as well fish. But day in, day out, what melts my butter is that dry fly drift. So we started screwing around and started playing around with floating lines. And that's what I'm going to demonstrate with today. It's a floating line, and it's very, very small. It's 26 thousandths of an inch in diameter. That would be like a quadruple zero fly line. And it's really just running line, it's all it is. It's just been formulated for Tenkara. The ones that we have are made by Cortland Line Company. The original ones that I was playing around with were made by Rio. So that's why you're going to see this green that looks like a fly line. The reason I like that floating is because I don't sink my dry flies too. Having come from 40 years of fly casting, I got used to that feedback that I was getting with the rod loaded, with the fly line. Okay? And it's really, as you progress in fly casting, you realize you're not casting a rod, you're casting the line. And then I think George Sanders will talk about, you know, don't overlook the importance of your fly lines. Because this, you will see this adds some mass, some dimension to your casting, you get a better feedback. And as you get into, you know, sight fishing, targeting your casts, you want that feedback. So we've now probably talked for 5 minutes and I haven't even made one cast, right? So how good is this going to be? I'm going to tell you a couple of tricks just so you know. These rods are, so here's a rod, this is a Tenkara rod, right? But it telescopes. So the difference between this rod and a cane pole is, this is telescopes, okay? Same principle though, sticking a string, right? It's just a modern cane pole, it's graphite. Somebody got smart, made it, and it telescopes. Now, when you set one of these rods up, there's certain things you want to remember. One, you don't want to tighten all these segments super tight, because if you do, you're going to wind up with a 10.5-foot rod that you're going to have to strap to the top of the Subaru until you have time to take it apart. And I can promise you, the chances of you breaking it, trying to push those segments back, is almost 100%. In my case, it has been 100%. So I'm going to put it in an angle, and I'm just going to slide those sections out, and I'm just going to snug them up, right? I want them to be able to collapse. All right? Now I've got a 10.5-foot casting tool, which I'm going to actually cast in a second. Okay? Now I'm going to put it away. So now I'm going to slide these segments in, and I'm going to feed them in with my hands. I'm not going to reach up here and jam them all in, because what happens is that's going to break. So I'm going to feed them in at the sections, especially this last section, okay? Now, the nice thing about these rods is they come with an extra 2 tip sections. If one of your friends were to happen to break his rod the second time, you could help him. Okay, so we've now put it in here, you put the tip cap in. Things to remember, you always want to check the butt cap, make sure you know where the tip cap is. We get a little ritual, always it's always going to go in the same pocket, whatever. And put something bright on it so when you drop it, you can find it. All right, Tenkara casting. Enough of the nonsense. Let's get down to the meat of the presentation. So I'm set. Oh, one other thing. In that odd time when you might get a fly hooked in a tree, do not pull on it with the rod. Do not pull on it with the rod. Why? Because you're going to tighten up all these sections, right? You're yanking on it, you're yanking on it. You're amazed how much you can yank on 5X. Lord help you if it's 3X, you can break the tree down, right? So now all these sections are just like jammed up tight. Don't do it. Collapse it, that's what I was telling you. Collapse it, reach the line, and pull it down, okay? Think about this when you're fishing with a Tenkara rod. What am I going to do if I get caught in a tree? What am I going to do if I get caught in a tree? You should have situational awareness anytime you fish. Like, where are the fish? How am I going to land it? Where am I going to get that line down, okay? I've had to cross over, had to throw the rod, cross over, and get it. But I knew that was what would be. All right. So, Tenkara cast. I'm going to, a conventional cast, right? Lift, accelerate to a stop, put the fly line in the water. Now, if that water was moving from that corner to this corner, right, the first thing I would have to do to keep that dry fly out in the seam where I want it would be to mend, right? Mend. Guide's favorite word, mend. No, mend. No, I mean mend. Mend again. Well, if you mend too many times, you disturb the water. Big fish aren't big because they're smart. Big fish are big because they scare easy. Any disturbance on the surface is not what they want to see. They're going to go home, right? So we want to have nice, quiet presentation. So here's my conventional cast, right? Lift, accelerate to a stop, put the line down, right? Using my forearm. Now, again, if the water's coming from there to there, that's all the line I'm going to have in the water. Now all I have to do is lift my line off the water to keep that fly in the target area. You have to see it to believe it, but 3 and 5 times the length of time for a drift that you will get with a Tenkara rod, because you are not putting line in the water. You're not throwing nasty casts like that, which spook fish. I'm just keeping the line off the water. How simple is it to teach someone to cast when all you tell them to do is flick their wrist, keep the fly on the water and the line off the water? That's this is my whole cast, this is my whole teaching experience. Okay, keep the line off the water. Now, you watch conventional guys, they will do this. Say, no, don't take the line off the water. So they make the cast like this. So where's the Tenkara cast? Again, I'm in, watch my hands, watch my wrist. It's here. I stop the rod very high. So I want to hit this, stopping really high. I want to get closer. Stop higher. Right. I want to get down further. Now I'm going to put line in the water. Now I'm going to put line in the water. But I can reach out there. So, simple cast, lift with your wrist. This is all the cast is. Now, 10.5-foot rod, the line length is a little bit longer. I tend to use longer lines, but about a rod length is what you want to start with. This is a 10.5-foot rod. This line's probably 12 feet. Then I put a leader on it. Now I generally fish 4X or 5X tippet. So I will take a 7.5-foot 5X leader, 7.5-foot 5X leader or 4X leader, and I will chop 2 to 3 feet off the back end, the fat end, the thick end of that leader, and then I will just attach it to the fly line. Now, if you looked at this one, you'd see that there's a fancy nail knot on here, and that's because sometimes I just have too much time on my hand. What all you need to do is tie an overhand knot in the end of this and then clinch knot your leader to it. Now you're going to treat that leader the same way you would treat a conventional leader. You cut it back, add to it, it gets to a point where it's all beat up, you know, accidents happen. You just tie another knot in, clip it off, tie another knot in, and clinch knot on your leader. The reason I use that leader is because it turns the flyover just a little bit better. But it's not necessary. In fact, it's absolutely not necessary. You can step down from 2x to 4x, from 3x to 5x by doing a short section of 3x, which is sort of your kind of your leader, your butt section, and then add in whatever terminal leader you want. How do you know how long the leader should be? The leader should be whatever works to turn over the fly effectively. So a big, bushy hopper is going to need a little bit stronger leader to turn over, and it's probably going to work a little bit better shorter. Remember, you're not going to be putting line in the water. You're not going to be spooking stuff. One of the problems I've learned with this Tenkara rod is that I can get to the ceiling pretty easily. So you're going to adjust. In fact, all the similar rules for terminal tackle on fly rods will work the same for Tenkara. That's not that different. So, back to the cast. Now if you look, and I hope you can see it, I should have looked before I did this, but I'm making a very slow cast, and watch the line come off the tip of the rod. That's a pretty decent loop. That's a pretty decent loop coming off that rod. And look at where my hand is. It's this. So it's very relaxed. It's very easy. It's very easy to teach someone how to cast. And more importantly, they get to do what they came to do, which is not cast, it's to fish. So if you're not worried about having to pat your head and rub your stomach because you have to shoot line, you can just focus on getting that fly out there where you want it. Does that make sense? Is this sort of coming along like, you know, I babble along and I think I'm making sense, but I should check with you guys. So, as you see, I'm very quietly doing this. I'm not, you know, it's this. Now, you notice I have a free hand. Now, if you're drinking beer, this is a revelation. And you'll notice if you look at our booth, you'll happen to see there's a lot of belt holders for beers. It's because we're a Tenkara. No, we don't got a place. I did a demonstration and a woman said to me, "What do you do with your free hand?" I said, "Liza, I know you like a gin and tonic. I'll bet you really like a gin and tonic by you." She goes, "Oh, look now, I'm all in on that deal." No, that's the whole thing. Smoke a cigar, whatever. So, 10.5-foot rod, 11 feet of line, 5 feet of leader. Now, I've been making, when I haven't hit that, back casts. So, you know, instinctively you say, well, wow, you do a whole lot of everything. You do. So from a dead stop, I'm making casts. Dead stop, making cast. So I don't care what's behind me. I can stand against that wall and make a cast. I'm going to get right to that. The question was landing fish, and I'm going to need a volunteer, and I'll get one in a sec, but I want to show you. I wasn't 14 years in the Navy Reserve. So this is, seriously, I've been showing you a Tenkara test, and all you have to do is watch my hand to see. dead stop. Okay, now there's really like a super magic trick. You're walking up the stream. It's a little stream, about as wide as this pond. And you see this log across, right? Now with your conventional three-way or two-way, you're thinking, how am I going to get under there? I need a lot of room. Or you might try this. This thing, bow and arrow cast like nobody's business. Lays it right up. Okay? Now, you're gonna make this cast, so here's the trick cast. Bow and arrow cast. It's really one of the more fun things to do. Right, so I'm gonna make my cast. I'm just going with my line. So I will, again, as I said, I don't care what's behind. All right, since you asked the question, you're going to be my volunteer. First, I want you to cast a rod. Do you have a Tenkara rod? In a package never open. All right, let's see you do. Okay, conventionally you fly fish with a regular fly rod, right? So remember what I said? Everybody casts it, they can put the line in the water. I want you to stop the rod up here. Now stop a little bit higher. That's it. That's all it takes to teach somebody how to cast with a Tenkara rod. All right? Now, I want you to be my fish. Okay? So just grab a little head down at the end. Oh, right there. That's fine. So I'm fighting a fish. It's all here. So with even on 5X, I can fight a 16 to 20-inch brown trout because I've got this much spring action. Okay, don't move. This much spring action. Now, before I land the fish, I'm going to tell you how you can break a fish off. Hubris is a horrible thing, but you know, you get cocky, you think you're good at it. I hooked a 19-inch green rainbow. I mean, this fish was hot, hot, hot. And Brian and Daniel were saying, no, you're going to have to move. No, you're going to have to move. I don't have to move. But the rod tip dropped. And when that rod tip drops, you look how flat that is. Now I'm fighting the fish down here. And this is where you will lose fish. So you want to try to keep that bend going. So you're going to move into the fish like this. You know what the sound of the Tenkara drag is? You're running. You're running. And so when we were talking about situational awareness, you want to look around and say, where am I going to land this fish? Right? Now, I'm here. I'm holding this fish. Still moving. All I'm going to do is push the rod away until I can get down to the point where I can scoop that fish up with the net. Because you're using a long rod and a long line, we recommend using nets. Get in a position where you can control the fish, but you don't have to. Like that. You can bring that fish in. Little brook trout, right? Just going to reach down, pop them off. Thank you. So that's pretty much it. Happy to answer a few questions if you want. I'll be over there all day. Well, I'll be there till 3. Then I'm doing a sit-down demonstration or sit-down discussion, Tenkara, more of the history and setups and stuff like that at 3 o'clock. And then I fly back to the New York. So thank you very much. I'm happy to answer questions.